Alright guys, welcome back to F1 News. Toto Wolff has signed himself a 3-year contract extension to stay as Mercedes team principal at least until 2026, but he also reveals the first pieces of driver simulator feedback on the W15, saying that his simulator drivers are telling him that for the first time in the last 3 years, the car actually feels like a racing car. Is that going to be enough to overhaul the 1 second per lap that Jake Dennis, Red Bull simulator driver, said that Mercedes needs if they want to have any chance of challenging the RB20? Very much on Twitter, your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Firstly, here from McLaren, they are cooking something at the moment because doing a couple of posts here on Instagram and on Twitter. If you go to their Instagram here, they've deleted like everything. They only have 2 posts remaining and both of them are kind of like this, so you guys can just about tell what's going on the left-hand side here. You know, they put together kind of like a hype video for their car effectively. So I don't know what they're cooking. I don't know if this is just kind of like media hype to gather some attention, but maybe it's going to work. Of course, McLaren would be in the ballpark theoretically to build the most competitive car for next season that isn't a Red Bull and isn't in a Red Bull livery, but we'll see about that in a couple of months, I suppose, really. Quick update on Steiner as well. Again, some further comments on his exit from Haas, not just from Steiner himself, but also chiefly really today from Bernie Eccleston, who says there has never been such a failed team boss who has become a superstar thanks to an American series. In my time when only performance counted, that never happened. So basically, Bernie's saying that Gunter was terrible in his job and it's about time that he's gone. And look, people will agree with that, people will disagree with that, but whatever you think, it doesn't leave Haas in a particularly good position. Even Gene Haas says, my biggest concern is what happens when we go to Bahrain. We need to show up with a car that's ready to go. Firing your team principal halfway through the off-season doesn't really send the message that it's all going well behind the scenes. The belief is, especially after their Austin upgrade last year, did not improve the car, and the fact that they'd spent all season working on one upgrade package that they hoped was going to work. Steiner even admitted their engineers just didn't find any performance in the wind tunnel, so they just couldn't make anything because what's the point making parts if they're not going to make the car quicker? Even when they did think they found something, it didn't even work, and especially the tyre degradation issues were massively problematic. So I don't know if we're going to have a 2021 repeat here with Haas, but it doesn't fill me with much confidence. All Haas might say, or Gene Haas might say about, oh, I can't believe we're 10th. We need to be, much higher up than that. I'm not sure they're going to be any higher up than that because there's optimism around all the other teams. Maybe, Sauber, not so much so. Okay, Stake F1 team, just because they've been kind of bad for the last couple of years. I don't know if they're going to make big steps. AlphaTauri almost certainly will. There's obviously a lot of optimism and confidence in the Williams team. They'll continue to make strides. Haas are, well, if they've not already been left behind, they certainly will be, I would imagine, in the very near future. You guys might also remember when Alpine did another one of their cullings of loads of their staff. Alan Permain, who has been around in Formula 1 for a very long time, he was their sporting director. He was let go after years with the Enstone team. He's now going to go to AlphaTauri or to Racing Bulls. That's the rumour of today. So pretty cool that he gets to stay around in the sport, and yeah, a bit of a loss for Alpine, but we've seen plenty of that over the last couple of years. Couple of updates as well on when cars are going to be launching. Red Bull confirmed today, 15th of February. That's the date for when the RB20 is going to be officially revealed. One of the latest dates we have seen, if not the latest actually. So I wonder, if Red Bull are the very final car, will they just show us the actual car this time rather than just kind of show us a render or show us last year's car with a new livery, which is the same as the old livery, but they pretend it's new? I don't know, because if Red Bull reveal their car early, they definitely don't want to reveal anything. But usually the other teams, Mercedes, McLaren, they'll show the real car, even if it's not the final version of the real car. They tend to show the real car. Red Bull don't always do that, but because they're going to be one of the last, maybe they will this time, which isn't always the case. There were rumours they were going to do it on the 8th of February. That's now the 15th. So, well, whether you believe that Motorsport Italy got it wrong and it was never going to be 8th and it was just a mistake from their side, or whether you believe that actually it was going to be the 8th and now Red Bull have changed their minds before making this public, kind of more inclined to believe the latter. There's various reasons they might have delayed it. Some people will say that, oh, well, they failed that crash test apparently back in December or whatever, so is that affecting it? Unlikely, but honestly, who knows? 15th of Feb is when the Red Bull's going to arrive. The Alpine is going to be on the 7th, in addition to the WEC program. I think they're going to launch the car of that at the same time. You guys guys remember, Mick Schumacher's driving for Alpine WEC this upcoming season. So that's on the 7th. And then 1 week after that is the Mercedes launch on the 14th of February. This was rumoured now for a little while, but that's now locked in. So we do have the Red Bull date on the 15th. It's the 14th is Mercedes. Rumour has it McLaren is also going to be the 14th. Usually AlphaTauri and Red Bull, don't they reveal it at relatively similar times? So maybe AlphaTauri will be a bit later as well. We don't really know yet. Haas just don't say anything. So yeah, Ferrari on the 13th, Aston on the 12th, and then a few are quite early. 5th of February only, it's not that far away. Between now and when we'll see the Williams and the Stake car with its, I'm sure, fantastic new livery, the green and black, whatever they're going to do in only a couple of weeks' time. But talking of Mercedes, big updates on them today, especially from the Toto Wolff angle on what the future is going to look like. We talked about this the other day. James Allison, Toto Wolff, they're not so happy with this set of regulations. They believe changes might be necessary to the rules in the near future, but clearly Mercedes have the intention to get back to the top. While they are lagging behind Red Bull in many different characteristics right now, the general feeling, I think, of the Formula One community is that if any team is in the position to put together a complete yearly package of success to defeat Red Bull, Mercedes are probably best positioned all across the board. Toto Wolff clearly feels the same way, or he feels like he just wants to get back to the top. But also, he's got Lewis Hamilton, he's got George Russell. If he wants to inspire confidence in them that they actually can get back, Toto Wolff dipping out, going sitting on a beach somewhere, probably isn't really sending the right message. Toto Wolff will step into another role at some point, whether that's in Formula One more widely, whether it's higher up at Mercedes, I don't know. But he's confirmed that he's signed another 3-year deal with Mercedes to stay until at least 2026. This kind of aligns with what I said the other day, that I expect Toto and Hamilton to, if anything, be there for the same amount of time. Like, I think Lewis will be there for another 2 to 3 years. He's going to drive for 24, 25, but is Hamilton, unless he gets the 8th, if Hamilton gets the 8th at some point in the next 2 years, maybe he steps away then. But if he doesn't, and then 2026 comes around, I don't think he's going to step away before brand new set of regulations, brand new power unit, unless he's washed, unless he's just not as good and doesn't feel like he can compete anymore, then he might step away. But I think Toto might be in a similar position. He wants to get Hamilton the 8th title, and then Toto will kind of feel like his job is done in a sense, oversaw the period of big dominance, and then to get Mercedes back to winning a title would, be kind of the crowning achievement for both of those guys, and then they could possibly step away from the sport then. But Toto, maybe to inspire confidence in the team or whatever, just because he enjoys doing it, and also he gets to make the decisions at the end of the day. Has signed a 3-year extension. Let's not forget, Toto as a shareholder and effectively the owner of the team gets to say, oh, Toto, do we want to do a contract extension in him? All right, yeah, good idea, Toto. What sort of money do we want? All right, let me put the figures down. And then, okay, yeah, Toto agrees with that number, so let's send it off to legal to get that co-signed. But he's spoken to, Jim Ratcliffe of Ineos and the other guys deciding the best interest, and they agree that they trust each other, and therefore, as a shareholder myself, I want the best return on investment. The best return on investment is winning. I'm not going to try and hang on to a position that I think somebody is going to do better than me and make sure that I have people around me who can tell me otherwise. In the end, the three of us decided let's do it again. So he's basically signed himself a 3-year extension, but I don't think Toto would continue in the role if he didn't believe that he was still positioned well to deliver results in that role. But there's been questions over his leadership over the last couple of years based on the inevitable decline of Mercedes, but nonetheless the extent of that decline in terms of pure car performance and understanding has been somewhat more severe than I think anyone really expected when Mercedes were going to, fall off a little bit. I don't think it was a massive surprise that Mercedes weren't the strongest team in 2022. At some points, they weren't going to be the strongest team, but to be so far off the pace and in the understanding category for the last couple of years has raised major questions, especially what happens this most recent season in 2023. He also, though, makes some other very insightful comments on his mindset, but also the potential strength of the W15. Similar in a way to what we discussed yesterday, Jake Dennis, Red Bull simulator driver, Formula E champion, said that, basically the Red Bull is so good, the RB20, that Max is going to win everything and it's going to be a boring season. Doesn't even mention Checo. No respect given to Perez, and maybe you think that's fair or maybe you don't. But Toto kind of does the same thing to George here. And we did talk about rumours that Toto had kind of sat George down and had a conversation with him about this, but it seems quite clear what the mindset is of Mercedes and of Toto Wolff on this. And I think it makes sense what he's saying here publicly and potentially what this implies about the internal dynamics, because if Hamilton wants to actually challenge Verstappen for a title, which is going to be a massive challenge, he needs to be confident that he doesn't have to watch his back too much. I think he will have to watch his back a lot because Russell is very quick in qualifying and does not like losing to anybody, especially not his teammates. But Mercedes will definitely have to play their cards to some extent to manage that internal situation if Hamilton is the lead driver of the pack, because, Hamilton, if he's got to focus on keeping George behind, can't look so much forward, which is why, the Bottas years were very profitable for Hamilton and for Mercedes, and of course Toto Wolff's pockets at the end of the day with the shareholder angle. But as Toto says, I'm staying at Mercedes to beat Red Bull with Hamilton. He didn't have to say about that, but we'll discuss on the car in a second. But if we give Hamilton a good car that he can rely on, he can get back in front of everyone. No, comment necessarily on George here, and going on to say whether Hamilton can still win the 8th, the answer is clearly yes in capital letters. There is a reason Lewis is a 7-time champion, broken all the records. His ability is on a different level, even to his teammate George. Not wrong, but, something that I don't think Toto would say unless he kind of has an understanding of how he needs to structure the internal dynamics within that team in order to give Hamilton the best chance to win the 8th. George might get a title at some point, lots of people have said it, but it doesn't feel like now is necessarily the time. If we are able to give him a car that he actually feels, that drives in a way that he can trust, he will be on a level that's needed to win the championship. 39 is no age, the age simply doesn't matter. So what do you guys think about this analysis here from Toto on, not mentioning George, the idea that Hamilton is the man that they're building around effectively to try and get the 8th title, and then as and when that does happen, if it happens, then Hamilton probably steps away, Russell becomes the de facto number 1, whatever. I don't imagine George Russell is seeing Toto say this and think, don't imagine he's too happy about the whole idea that he's basically saying, oh yeah, Hamilton's going to get us that 8th title and he's get us back to the top, when George is saying the thing, I'm going to say, what do you mean, Toto? You don't want to mention me as well? Like, if you give me a car I like, I could also do the job. But clearly Toto doesn't feel like, maybe he does agree with that because he knows that George is good. I think we all know that George is good, but is he good enough right now? I don't really think so. And also, I would say that Toto's saying this because he knows that in order to get Hamilton in a massively confident position, he needs to kind of structure the setup so that Hamilton doesn't feel so much pressure. But I think that's very much easier said than done. The other piece, of course, though, is delivering the car. It doesn't matter how good Hamilton is. And I still think, like, on the grid today of the 20 drivers, there's only 2 outside of Verstappen that I have real confidence could actually challenge him over the course of a season. And that would be, to me, Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso. In terms of experience, in terms of raw pace, all these factors, those are the only 2 that I could really see giving a challenge. Alonso's not going to have the car, unfortunately. That's just how it is. So it's really on Hamilton and Mercedes to deliver the goods. There's other phenomenal drivers out there. Leclerc, Norris, Russell. Those guys especially with lots of pace there, but there's questions about all those guys in terms of, look, Norris has to focus on getting a race win first before you think about winning a championship. A few high-profile mistakes that Norris made at the end of last season, especially in qualifying. Leclerc has unbelievable pace, but there's questions about his consistency, especially over the course of a season, and then, and even race pace at times, depending on how the car setup is. And also, from Leclerc's side, there's maybe questions about the car, like, can Ferrari do it from an operational standpoint? Maybe not. And then even Russell himself, phenomenal pace over a single lap, but race pace has been a bit of a question. Even Piastri, you could maybe throw on the fringes of this discussion, but again, race pace, tire degradation, not been as good for Russell compared to Hamilton, not been as good for Piastri compared to Norris, for example, and in Russell's case, few too many errors when the pressure is on to really think that he can be a real championship contender when Max just makes no mistakes at all. So, I think Toto has analysed the situation correctly, but delivering a car is now the number 1 priority. So Anthony Davidson, you guys probably know him as Formula 1 commentator for Sky Sports, but he's been a Mercedes simulator driver for, I'm pretty sure, well over a decade. I think he's been there pretty much since the team became Mercedes. So he's definitely, I'm almost certain, been there driving the cars during the period of Mercedes dominance. So he knows what it feels like to drive a dominant Mercedes and to drive a car that functions in the way that is desirable. And apparently Anthony Davidson has been telling Toto Wolff that the car feels like a car for the first time in 2 years. So I will say the dichotomy is quite funny, right, between Davidson, Mercedes simulator driver, saying that, well, the car feels like a car, and Jake Dennis, Red Bull simulator driver, saying that it's just so unbelievably good that nobody else has got a chance. So there's a bit of a discrepancy, but as well, Toto goes on to say, obviously I would love this to correlate to the track, but we have seen the last 2 years, this was not always the case. So Anthony Davidson clearly feels like the car is very good. I mean, he knows what it's like to drive, at least in the simulator terms, a great Mercedes. The last 2 years haven't felt like that. I guess the question for me is, the Mercedes in the simulator pre-2022 was apparently a rocket ship, So was it like it was a rocket ship in the sim then, and then once they actually adjusted the simulator to match reality, because they weren't performance, getting the simulated conditions, what was actually happening on the track, then it was a bit of a struggle to drive, possibly so. But Mercedes keep saying for some time now that, they've fixed their correlation issues, there's no issue anymore, the simulator is going to match what we see in reality, so that's what they say, and now they say that a car feels like a car again. Does that feel like a championship-winning Mercedes car? Look, Davidson's not going to give too much away, but clearly he believes it's a significant step forward in terms of drivability compared to what's happened for the last couple of years, which might gain, a good step in performance, but also might gain significantly in terms of confidence the drivers have, which is definitely a big thing for Hamilton. He's talked about quite a lot over the most recent season. So what do you guys expect to happen here? I mean, Toto Wolff's been quite clear. 3-year extension. He's there to stay with Hamilton for the near future, backing Hamilton to be his man and revealing that the car is making serious progress. Is that going to be enough to get close to where Red Bull are going to be? That's a question, but as Toto says, I'm not going anywhere. So sending the message to the team and to the rest of the grid on what the intentions of Mercedes are. And I think it will be difficult to take Toto away from this team before they get another championship. Mercedes will win another championship, I would say, at some point. It's a matter of when and whether Toto and Hamilton are still there to make that happen. That's their absolute goal. Hamilton's made it very clear that, getting back to the top would cap off the career. Toto probably feels the same way. But, when Red Bull are the competitive animals that they are, and with the absolute dominant forces that they have built in basically every single aspect of Formula One, it is far easier said than done to actually challenge and take those guys down. But if, what Jake Dennis said the other day about the car's such a rocket ship, we're going to be impossible to stop, is to be believed, then, well, it might well be true that Toto and Hamilton will step away before they get another title. But very much interested to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.